Ladies and gentlemen, the BamVino Podcast.
Welcome to the first ever BamVino Podcast. And really this is probably, I don't even know if we should call this a podcast. Really, I think this is going to be the origin story of how all this came together, and then maybe where we're going to take it from there, and the types of people that we hope to feature on the show as we go along, and just have some fun with it. I mean, hopefully it becomes a thing and, you know, people enjoy it, but at the very least, you'll hear how this whole thing started, and we'll chop it up from there and talk about baseball and wine and the passion around all of that and what brings that together, and then the great stories. I mean, you know, anytime you have a bottle of wine open, or anybody's baseball memories or baseball stories, or you go to a specific game with a specific person, you always have great stories. So with that, I think we'll jump in, fellas, and this thing probably shouldn't exist, except the three of us decided to.
Great decisions happen after a few bottles of wine, don't they?
Yeah, so exactly. Yeah, it probably shouldn't exist, but we'll talk about that and kind of each other's backgrounds and how we all came together. I think it's a good place to start. Mm-hmm. So let's do intros first. We'll start with you, Robbie. Robbie is Sigma Engineers, Cards and Culture, collector, an entrepreneur, a wine guy, and a budding wine guy.
Yeah.
Amateur,
at best.
So talk a little bit about that, and maybe even about how you and Grant met, you know, over time.
Yeah, so thanks. This is awesome to be a part of this, by the way. It's pretty cool.
I agree.
Good friend of mine, Pete, who's an amazing human, and Grant, who I've known, I don't know, we keep going back and forth on this, but probably at least 15 years or so, right?
Yeah.
And so I've had the great fortune in my life to meet really great people that kind of like-minded and having an entrepreneurial spirit. Just so happens the three of us also have a love of baseball and a history with baseball. And so what a neat concept that we get to play with our passions in both wine and also baseball and storytelling. So it's really neat. And that's what wine means to me. And so it's about that connection. And so I think it's really cool to use this medium to tell the story, and then to go on with other folks that have a passion for both baseball and wine. That just brings us more together. That's what it's all about, that community. So really cool to be a part of it. Like I said, I met Grant, you know, probably 15, 16 years ago, as he was really gaining his traction and getting his foothold as a really, really established winemaker in Napa. And now he's become, you know, quite a legend in Napa, both having A&R and Reverie too. He won't tell you that, he's way too humble, but he's absolutely just an absolute gift to the wine world in general. And through the years, my curiosity, he's always sparked that. He's always encouraged my questions and my curiosity, and been always just very educational for me. And just a great guy. We get along so well. So that relationship had gone a certain way, and we started a couple of projects together that I'm super excited about. And then I think you're going to tell the story about how BamVino came to be.
We will.
But Pete and I go back through family and also a love of baseball, LSU baseball legend here. So that's
right on my shoulders at baseball camp.
I do like to say when I was a kid, I really enjoyed my dad bringing me to games to watch Pete Bush play first base.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm slightly older than these people. Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. Yeah, so that's a good way to kick off. And then, of course, you told some of Grant's story, but Grant, a little bit more about you.
Yeah, no, I grew up playing sports, again, left-handed first baseman, pitcher. I absolutely love baseball, and I mean, fast forward, I got a 12-year-old that I'm coaching.
Oh, yeah.
As I was telling Rob the other day that he had his first playoff game, fan 10, 5 innings. And
Nice.
I missed it, but it's all right. They won, so hopefully if they keep winning, I'll be home in time to coach the final part of it. So baseball has followed me my entire life. I was lucky enough to be a bat boy for the Giants when I was a kid too, and have just a really phenomenal opportunity to meet some of my legends like Will Clark. And so wine kind of just ended up being the thing that I followed as my path from as early as 17, 18 years old, experimenting with wine and making it in my parents' garage, to today owning 2 amazing wineries with my wife Megan in Napa with Reverie and A&R. But the thing that I believe wine is so special about, we were talking about passion, is just the connections that are established through wine. I'm Didn't grow up traveling a lot as a kid, and the opportunity that wine has afforded me to be in places like this in Baton Rouge, meeting some of my longest time supporters in their hometown, is in itself just an absolute gift, and it all happens because of wine.
I love it. And we're going to dig in on more of the story and learn more about Reverie and A&R and the different varietals. But I thought it'd be cool to go back to what you were alluding to earlier, is the BamVino itself, and how this three-guy thing came together, each with our own unique abilities. Robbie had invited me on his podcast, Wino with Rhino, last fall. And we're sitting there, and in the background, kind of like this, there was a Chicago Cubs BamVino sitting behind him. And I had brought him as a gift. You also make wine miscellaneous. And I had a bottle of that, and I brought it to him because I knew that he knew you. And I was like, that'd be a cool gift for having me on the show. So he takes it and he puts it in the BamVino in the back. And I was like, oh, you got my guy. And he says, no, I don't, I think your brother gave me that. Like, I have like 5 of these things, you know, like people knew I was a baseball wine guy, and so they would just buy me. They knew I was a Chicago Cubs Rhino fan. And so they brought me the BamVino, and I said, no, I didn't give it to you. I invented that. He goes, get the hell out of here. You didn't invent that. I mean, as a financial guy, right? He's like, you're not that creative. Yeah. It's
first baseman, right?
It's first baseman.
Yeah.
And that's what he was thinking, right? So anyway, I said, no, I did. And he goes, holy cow. And I was like, yeah. And as a matter of fact, I mean, we had this, probably sold 60,000 of these things over time. I mean, people text me still from different places and go, man, I saw your guy on the bar or whatever, which is really cool. It's like you said, it's just some cool things that it has brought together in my life as well. So what I said there to him was, when I invented that thing, I always thought one day would be really cool is to have the bat too, and have a BamVino wine, branded wine, to go with the BamVino bottle holder. And of course, he was like, I know a guy. I think I got your guy. He makes Olivier wine and A&R. And of course, I really probably should back up a little bit further, because you were so gracious to donate to a local charity in 2018, because I know the trip was in 2019, so this would have had to happen in 2018 with Heritage Ranch. At the time, you were on the board and you were helping raise money for a local great charity. And so the way that evolved was you donated the trip and some of your wine and Reverie glasses, which have not long ago not survived Pete's drinking
They got
style.
used. They got used.
I'm like a bull in a china cabinet. But anyway, what was awesome is we got to go and stay at your cottage and meet you and Megan, and so that we had a connection there obviously still through him, even a long time ago. So when he brought your name back up as, I might have a guy, I was like, oh, that guy. Okay, yeah, that guy's awesome.
That guy's a little older than he was last time I met him, but I still know a guy.
You had your sticks. I remember you getting out of the car. You had your sticks. You were coming off the golf course. He was a really good golfer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Went to
The
college.
land long ago.
Yeah. Well, no, you played at a level but that most don't. So I like that. That's part of your story, right? So anyway, fast forward this whole conversation. Like, it kind of started moving fast after that. We're like, we're going to do it. You're going to do it. He calls Grant. Grant, as he told you earlier, the baseball guy. And Grant's like, and you guys can talk about that conversation because I wasn't part of that. But
it's
somewhere
funny is I didn't call him immediately because I was kind of in my head going, okay, he's been gracious enough to let me do this little Olivier experiment. I'm going to annoy the hell out of him with this. I fell in love with the idea and the concept. I always wanted to do something with you. This happened to be the opportunity. We get to actually play in a space together that I think we both cherish very much.
Sure.
But bringing the concept to Grant, he's a prolific winemaker. We have this little project that for us is fun. It's a passion play, just something we want to have fun with and share with the world, right? And you never know how that's going to be received, even though Grant's always been incredibly gracious to me. And to my surprise, he literally stopped me, I think, within the first couple of sentences and said, look, say less, I'm in. I'm like, wait, what? He goes, yeah.
I can do this.
Yeah.
We can do this.
Yeah.
This is not going to be a huge leap. And I'm kind of honored to be a part of it because just like you, as the conversation started to have about BamVino, I was like, I've seen that thing. I've seen that thing a lot of places. And then like in the moment you see it, right? It's like anything else, all of a sudden you see it everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's one right there. Oh, there's one right there.
Yeah.
And the thought of just the fact that, I'm not picking on you, but that the concept of not bringing the bottle to the statue a long time ago
right.
was kind of like, well, yeah, I want to be part of this. If there's another 60,000 of these things going out the door, I want to make sure there's a BamVino bottle in every one of them.
Absolutely.
So yeah, no, I was very honored to get the phone call and be trusted with such a cool project that has already such a legacy associated to it. So yeah, no, I'm very honored. Thank you, gentlemen, for
it's
making
great.
me part of
It's
it.
great. So yeah, you are the guy responsible for the magic in the bottle. Let's say. So let's talk about that. It's an Atlas Peak cab.
Well, I think you got to go back even further. So when we were having the conversation, as Robbie has discovered over years of doing his own project with Olivier, the experience of wine is not just picking one, it's the actual experience of going through the process of deciding which wine fits what you want to do. And so sending out all the barrel samples to you and having you blind taste, and Robbie sending me pictures of your guys' notes. It was a phenomenal way to watch you guys from Baton Rouge go through the process of deciding what wine fits your vision for this moving forward. Because I think that's the thing that people forget about wine is that, there's a lot of great wine out there, but once you decide to put your name on it, it's got to be something you really want to stand behind outside of the others. And so I think it was really fun that you chose a mountain vineyard. We have a great history with Aonair specializing in mountain wines, and a recent development on Atlas Peak that I think has bringing more and more attention to an AVA that has been overlooked for many, many years. So again, honored to have Atlas Peak be.
Yeah, we tasted, or you might be able to see this bar right behind Robbie's.
I was sitting right here.
Robbie's head. We sat right there at that bar and went through the bottles, and that was a really cool experience. I was doing what I do best. I was just opening and drinking the wine, and he had all kind of like mad scientist notes there, And he was like, just to be sure, we called in a friend the next day. We had to phone a friend who, he knows Mike probably.
Yeah, Castaban.
Castaban. And he was like, just to be sure, let's call in an expert palate here, And of course he nailed it, perfectly.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I want to get across with this project. It's something that Grant taught me, because it can be intimidating. Wine can be. It shouldn't be, to your point.
Agreed.
But it very much can be. And so to have somebody that's so knowledgeable and so great, and this is my experience of most really great people in the wine world. It's not this competition. People actually want to help each other and be part of a bigger community, and it's special. And so to be a part of that's really, really cool. And I'm no expert. I just have a pretty good idea of what I like, which I think is a good enough starting point for anybody out there that's maybe a little bit intimidated by wine. I started out drinking the cheapest stuff I could possibly afford. And that's how I determined what I drank, is what I could afford, right? And then over time,
which is completely normal, by the way.
Yeah,
people have said for years about white Zinfandel. Do you hate white Zinfandel? I'm like, no, that's the seed of pretty much every great baby boomer wine drinker today that helps support my industry. So no, you have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's getting rid of the judgment or feeling of getting judged, and then so for me, tasting, and you had given me a lot of insight, and a lot of other folks have been very helpful. But just try to really live in the experience and not be afraid to be wrong or look foolish. And just, hey, here's what I smell, here's what I taste. I could be completely wrong, and if I am, maybe educate me, give me some insight. Or that one time, it's kind of like you go to play golf and you play 17 terrible holes, but that drive on the 18th is perfect. You're like, all right, I'm back, I'm coming back. Right?
In one shot.
And so it's when you get that one note that struck a chord, and somebody that knows the notes and understands wine's like, yeah, that's exactly right. It's blackberry and heavy fruit forward, or it's super dry or whatever. And you just have that little win, and then you're like, oh shit, it's like you're learning a new skill. And so that kind of happened for me in tasting the BamVino, because we had wonderful options in front of us. And when we went back and reviewed the notes, it just kept strumming a chord with us. And we didn't even know we were really tasting other than Atlas Peak. And so when we learned more about the wine, I'm going, holy cow, the notes actually are somewhat similar to what the tasting notes are. So I don't know, I felt really aligned with this wine. It was a really cool experience.
Absolutely. Well, we got to talk wine and we got to talk baseball, because this podcast is going to interview all kind of people in both industries, right? and the passion they bring to what they do. So we got to tell baseball stories. I mean, you got a baseball story?
Well, I mean, I could sit and tell baseball stories, but I mean,
I want to go wine story first. I mean, we can go whatever.
Well, I
you
guess
want.
we go both down. I mean, I've been in the business now for a little over 20 years on the commercial side. I got started just kind of working, dragging hoses, but I think over the last 20 years, one of the most fascinating things about wine is how much it has touched sports. I mean, the amount of professional athletes that have drawn themselves to wine, either directly by actually wanting to be part of a project, and that story goes down from Steph Curry all the way through to professional golfers that now have their own wine projects, but also their passion for collecting and sharing. Popovich was notorious for being a huge wine lover and then taking guys out to restaurants and ordering 15 bottles of wine and like being able to line them all up and talk about them. I think that's a piece of athletes recognizing that wine is that piece of art and passion that is not as connected to 1 + 1 = 2. It's a personal choice, and that ability to expand that tasting and talk about it, I think, parallels a lot of sports.
Yeah, you do see a lot more athletes doing that now, and that's cool. You made me think of while you were saying that. I hadn't thought about this until just now, but I grew up a Big Red Machine fan, right? Pete Rose, Johnny Bench, that era. And the Mets traded over Tom Seaver to the Reds kind of when I was about 10, 11, 12 years old. And I remember reading that he went out and actually after he retired, he kind of disappeared from baseball and he went out to Napa and started his own GTS was the name of it. Yeah,
it's a great project.
Yeah, and I know he passed away recently during COVID and all that, but man, I was fascinated by his same methodical science approach he took to pitching into his winemaking.
Absolutely.
Which is a really cool story.
Well, and it also parallels a passion. Again, going back to that passion thing, where we had people coming to Napa that loved wine, but loved him equally, and with it, the wine he made. And so I think that's that bridge between the two that is also really important when it comes to wine.
Yeah.
The story behind it.
Story behind it. What about you, baseball story wise? You got a good one for us? I got a couple that I'm going to tell from LSU, but I want to hear you guys because you got to have a good, funny baseball story.
I don't know about funny. I'll tell you. I'll tell you. I came from a legacy standpoint, a baseball family. Like it's what we knew. I was 3 years old, and I could throw a ball like to where I was aiming at 3 years old. So it's always been in my blood. It's been a thing. And a couple of my uncles played for LSU. We were talking about that last night. In fact, one of them, my Uncle Gene, I think, is the oldest living current alumni of LSU baseball. Yeah,
they're legends.
And so, big baseball family. We go to Alex Box, and when Skip came to LSU, it really changed the landscape of baseball and what it meant. And you were one of his very first dudes. I would almost say, in my mind, before I really got to know you, I always associated you with Skip's really first guys, right?
Right.
And so before games were really televised and all that, I remembered being a kid in the living room and listening to our first regionals when Pat Garrity hit a double in the right center gap. And I remember just like staring at the radio. This is how old I am, by the way.
Yeah, the Texas A&M, yeah. Great.
And it sent us to Omaha, and it was the first time, and I just remember as a kid looking at my dad's reaction and how much it meant to him, and I'm like, this is a big deal, and I just fell in love with the game. And I have my own relationship with the Cubs and all that, but specifically for LSU and how it relates to BamVino, it's always been in my blood, and I had committed to go to LSU and all that, and I wound up going somewhere else, but LSU's always had a really special place in my heart, and I think you and I have always bonded over that because you're not actually from here,
right? Yeah.
Right. I'm born and raised in Baton Rouge, so it's odd that you're not from here, but you were an important part of my love of baseball and coming up. So
part of my journey is a cool success story of the timing of when I moved here, because you just talked about when Skip got here. That was his first season at LSU was my junior year in high school. So that's when you're really starting to think about, like, am I going to go play ball, somewhere? I wasn't even thinking about LSU because LSU was not good, right? The program never won, or hadn't won in years, And so I was thinking Mississippi State, Will Clark's over there, right? He's pretty good. He's from New Orleans. Okay, I'm looking there. Arizona State had Barry Bonds and Oda V. McDowell and some of these great players. And I'm thinking, recruiting was different then. It was almost like I had to raise my hand and go, hey, well, I'm over here, There wasn't all these videos and films you could go watch people on all the time. So anyway, fast forward, Skip gets there. I go to his very first Skip Bertman baseball camp.
Oh, wow.
And I always tell people part of my journey is I was the MVP of the very first Skip Bertman baseball camp, high school division. Now, I don't know what happened to the other 11 guys in that division, but I ended up playing for him. Yeah, it was small. It was his first camp ever. Nobody knew who he was, and it just so happened a teammate's dad, I had a teammate that was a couple years younger, couldn't drive. I worked for his dad hanging ceiling fans, believe it or not, in the summer, and he goes, hey, I'll pay your way to camp if you drive my son back and forth every day. I'm like, I'm in on that. And that's how Skip saw me for the first time. So
that's a hell of an origin
inflection point in my life, because then, a couple years later, I'm playing for him my very first year. My freshman year was the very first trip in the school's history to the College World Series. And then we went back 2 more times while I was there. Now, I did, in playing for Skip, I did give him plenty of reasons to drink. I'm just going to tell you that right now.
I've spent a little bit of time around you this week, Pete. I can see how that's kind of followed you a little bit.
I've got a great story. We actually play in Mississippi State, and this guy chops a ball. So the old Alex box, where the sun would set between the roof and the grandstand, hit first base and right field, right? Like when it was coming down, it was blinding, right? So we're playing Mississippi State. This left-handed hitter chops one on the plate, and it goes up, and it sits right in that sun spot, right? So I'm like this. I'm blind, can't see it. And I'm like this, where's the ball? I'm just waiting to see it, thinking it's going to hit me in the face. But I'm okay with that, just to stop the ball, because you can't really, I got I always tell everybody I got a face like the inside of a catcher's mitt anyway. So whatever. It ain't going to do any more damage. So anyway, so the ball hits right by my cleat and rolls into right field, right? Didn't touch it, so no error. It's a base hit. And it just chopped over. So Skip notices that I had gotten blinded or whatever, and he's in the dugout. So once a runner's on first base, you're either going to hold him on or you're going to play halfway. And this is the symbol. He would go from the dugout, hey, halfway. So he's like, Bush, Bush. And he's yelling out. Well, I think I'm pissed at myself for missing this ball, right? I think he's yelling at me or trying to do something anyway. I turn and I snap, and I'm like, I lost it in the sun. And he's like, ooh, halfway, play halfway. I'm like, okay, whatever. We get 3 outs. We come in the dugout, and I sit down, still fuming about it. And my teammates are chuckling at me, right? And I'm like, what are y'all laughing about? It's like, dude, when you turned around, Skip turns around to us and says, how the hell do you lose a ground ball in the sun? So like I said, had he had a bottle of A&R wine in the dugout that day, he would have drank it all right then.
That's pretty good. I like that. That's pretty good.
Yeah, so fun times. Well, look, let's learn more about, we talked about BamVino wine, and we can come back to more of the development of that, but also you guys both have wines. I know you're making all the magic in the bottle.
I want to hear your story on Olivier.
Let's talk about
the origin
Olivier.
story of Olivier.
We got a couple here. You want to start with that one?
Sure. Well, yeah, this is actually the second label that we're launching this week. No, this is great.
He might be in one of these others.
Yeah, I can give you this one. Talk about this one. This is where it all got started.
Yeah, let's go with there. Since you autographed that one too.
I think that's a gift to you.
I see that. That's a collectible now. We're going to talk about that too.
That's right.
By defacing the label, it's a collectible now?
I'm going straight to eBay after this show.
Yeah, so when I was a kid, my mom was great with all these. I was a very rambunctious kid. Challenged my parents quite a bit. She always found a way to motivate me and inspire me to use my powers for good instead of bad. She was an absolute saint. And one of the things she taught me at a very young age was to have an appreciation for our lineage and our family, which my last name's Olivier. And taught me what it meant in French. It's the olive tree or the wood of the olive, which there's all these characteristics of that make it a very important. It's very sturdy and stable and consistent and reliable and very useful in a lot of different applications. And so trying to tie that to the core values of my family sort of, and not to get too deep, but that's kind of how she got me to kind of grow up a little bit, was to connect it to who we are and our core values as a family. And so that really helped shape me from a very young age on how I view the world. So it's kind of weird to put my name on something like that. Like, that's not really our style. So I've never done that with any other business or entity I've ever been involved in, because I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about the people that made it, the family, the experience, the whole thing. But with this one, it's a pretty romantic name for a bottle of wine, right? Like Olivier sounds like it should be the name of a
Oh,
wine.
you did also roll with last name. It's not like you put Robbie on it.
I'm a little weird, right?
That would be a little weird.
So I always thought if I ever did something in that world, it would have to be with the name Olivier as an ode to the fam. And obviously that plays really well, because you think of grapes and olives when you think of wine country.
The history of wine,
you know?
absolutely.
And so it all just kind of made sense. But it was always just kind of a, I don't know, ridiculous thought that I would never, ever get an opportunity to play in that space. And, you know, meeting Grant the first time really opened my eyes to somebody relatable. Like, hey, that's a dude that, like, I probably would have gotten along with regardless of wine. And so we had all this stuff in common, and I just found him so fascinating. And it just so happened that he was a super talented winemaker, and it really sparked my interest. Like, well, if he's interested in that, I probably would be, because we have all these other interests in common, and he's next level. I don't know. I'm not trying to aspire to be Grant, but I'm super curious now. And here's a person I can actually, like, call and ask questions to. And that's, by the way, A&R and Reverie 2 are just two of the most exceptional groups of wines you can possibly have. I'm a member of both, and this is not a plug or a sales pitch for Grant. I passionately have been a member of A&R since before A&R was, like, official, I think. And then you brought the Reverie 2 project back into life, and they're just exceptional, exquisite wines. It's just unbelievable. So if you have the chance, please. And if you ever go to Napa and you want a true badass Napa experience, call Grant. His number's on the back of that bottle of A&R.
It's starting to sound like a plug, though.
It is, and I don't mean to do it that way. I just mean I've
As it should be.
been and visited with him and his wonderful staff multiple times. Anytime I go to Napa, there's no shot I'm not going to visit him at one of his places. Because every time I go, I learn more. And again, I'm still very much a wine novice. I'm starting to learn just enough to probably say the wrong thing to the wrong person. But every time I go, I level up my education. And so I love going over there. And there's other wonderful people too. But to me, that's when I started to go, you know what? Like, I see how this is connecting people. And I'm not in this space. I'm not in this industry. I'm more in the industry, engineering and the petrochem side. You don't get this opportunity to bond with people over our product, or at least not in this type of way. And it's a very competitive world. And I started to see that other winemakers and other people in wine, they didn't view each other as competitors for the most part. They actually looked at each other as we're allies in an industry we're all very passionate about, right? Yeah. And even like the local wine guys here that are true winemakers, or vintners, if you will, when they heard about this project, I thought I would be judged, because I don't have a brick and mortar. I'm not stomping grapes, right? I'm going to have an imposter syndrome or something. They were like, no, dude, this is how it starts. And they were so open with me about their struggles and all the complications of having a Napa winery license. And, compliance is a huge deal. You're dealing with California and Louisiana. So a lot of politics, a lot of regulations. There's a lot of hoops to jump through. That's why not everybody does it. And you have to be passionate about it. And so we started with the barrel program with Grant, to where we did a blind taste test. He walked me through how to do that, and I took tasting notes for 3 days. And the Oakville grape always won, and 3 years in a row in a blind taste test, it always won. And so Grant likes to joke that apparently I have a type.
You have a type. It happens to be a very good type, but you have a type.
Yeah. And I've always tended to pick out the most expensive thing in a blind setting. And no, it truly is elevated. And I actually learned more about this particular grape, where it's grown on the East Bench of Oakville, and what it's meant to Grant. So to me, this project has even more meaning, because not only do I have the honor of Grant being our winemaker, but this is actually a pretty special grape to him. And so if you want to kind of fill in,
Yeah, I was telling you that story because, I mentioned, I didn't come from a background in wine. I grew up kind of working dragging hoses, learning and learning the business from the bottom up. I worked under some really phenomenal, talented winemakers, and still work with some of the most talented team that I could possibly imagine on the winemaking side. But you grew up driving up and down the valley. I waited tables, I was a server, I did the whole thing. So you're driving up and down the valley all your life, connected to wine in some way, but you drive by these vineyards, and if you're passionate about wine, you're just awestruck by them. I jokingly refer to them as unicorn vineyards, where you drive by and you know just enough about wine to know the dirt, the exposure, the location. You're like, that's got to make some of the best wine in all of Napa. But that's also a lot of those plots, or that hollow dirt is passed down through generations and generations, or to billionaires that can afford to spend the money to buy these pieces of dirt. So you never really ever think that you're ever going to aspire or have the opportunity to make wine from them. You just kind of get to appreciate them from a distance. And as my career grew and some of the opportunities and reputation that I was building in the valley, some of these doors started to open. And one of the doors that was really, really special to me was this particular vineyard. This vineyard was one of those doors that I had never really thought was possible. And when that door opened, I jumped very quickly at it. And it became a cornerstone of a lot of our winemaking. Goes into my Mountains proprietary. But there are certain blocks off the vineyard that every year they stand alone. They're just different than the rest. And I pulled them out as part of my single barrel program. And the Olivier has been the cornerstone of that ever since. So it's fun to drive by it and be able to know, a contributor into obviously the Mountains proprietary, but also to know that a single barrel came from this spot. That's yours.
So cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I love hearing him tell the story about the mountain ranges and the valley and the way all that.
Alluvian fans. I remember that.
Yeah, you remember that?
I'm not a geologist, but if you're a winemaker, you play in dirt. You have to understand dirt. And then once you start to understand dirt, you have to understand how old the dirt is and where the dirt came from. So yes, you start to learn a little bit more than the average Joe about what a fluvial fan is versus alluvial.
I have to say, I am a registered professional mechanical engineer, and you said a lot of words last night that I'm pretty sure I've never heard before.
Exactly.
I mean, you're a
This
scientist.
from a college dropout too. On top of it. Sorry.
I mean, you're a scientist.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right. Well, you guys got to have baseball stories. You got to. You said.
Well, I can give you one story. Will Clark's probably going to be very upset about this particular story, but so I'm a kid, left-handed. I said left-handed pitcher, left-handed first baseman, and I'm 45. So I grew up in the era of Will the Thrill.
Yeah,
I mean, he was
Sweet swing.
Oh my gosh, it was. And as a local Bay Area kid, the Giants were everything to me. So my parents, at one of these fabulous auction items before people worried about liability, were able to buy a auction lot be a bat boy for the Giants for a day. And so I still thank my parents for the opportunity, because it's something that I still get to retell 30 something years later. But I got to be the bat boy for a home game, and this is that era of, again, Dusty Baker, Will Clark, Matt Williams. I mean, just the team was just a beloved Giants team. And so I get to meet Will Clark, and the unfortunate part of my timing was the first year that he didn't make the All-Star team.
Oh, no.
Found out that day. So he was not having a good day, and I was just, idolizing this guy. So the game comes to an end. Matt Williams hits a grand slam, by the way, to win the game. Hands me the broken bat. Again, as a kid, you're just like, wow. Awesome. But all I can think of is this ball. I need to get Will Clark to send this ball.
Yeah.
And he just kind of pushes me away, like, no, man, I don't have time for this. And Dusty walks over and practically grabs him by the ear and drags him over and signs that ball for that kid.
Nice.
Who signs the ball. And, I still walked away from it still thinking Will Clark was one of my greatest memories of baseball. Fast forward 30 years later, I get a call from one of his managers. He wants to do a special wine project, and I'm connected to baseball, making wine for a few ball players, and I couldn't help but jump at the opportunity. Very serendipitous, to look back, and I got to know Will post baseball in a very different light than I got to know him that day in the dugout, and the contributions that he's making to baseball on the kids' side of not only being a professional as a talent scout, but for the Giants, but also like interact with him around kids and the influence he's having is just priceless. I talked with you about this the other day. I think athletes are some of the greatest influences kids have in today's sports, and why I get so frustrated when maybe someone that has a lot of influence doesn't recognize that and isn't the greatest role model. But in those moments where they do get to do that and pay it forward, it's some of the most like emotionally and heartwarming moments to see kids just melt. And he was up at the winery for his retirement party and asked if there were any kids that would like to come early, and that in itself was special. So we had all these kids up there. And he's got his World Series ring from when he was with the Giants on the admin side, and he's showing it off. And one of the girls that was there was just absolutely mind blown. She plays baseball, and he took off the ring, put it on her finger, and showed her. She's like looking at it like this, and he's like, "No, you gotta hold it like this." And then he put his arm around her and got a picture in front of with his dad or with her dad. And it was just that moment of like,
that's cool.
This is baseball. This right here is what baseball is all about. It's not wins, losses, or your average. It's the influence you have on the next generation that will see it. Yeah. And that's one of my favorite baseball stories.
That's a great story. It made me think, were you there during the earthquake?
It wasn't that game. I didn't get to do it for the World Series, but it was that year.
Yeah, it was that year. Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah, the Battle of the Bay.
And the timing of it.
Yeah.
And I remember Dusty Baker or JT Snow sweeping Dusty Baker's son out of the way.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the same year because Will was.
It was years later.
Yeah.
But that's when they eliminated not having professional bat boys.
Right.
Bat boys, bat girls.
Yeah, you got to be trained.
Correct.
Well, we've mentioned passion a couple of times, and if Will Clark just had passion, I mean, just think if the guy had passion. I love watching him go off on stories. And you're right, he is passionate about kids and baseball and all the things he's involved in. But he and a Louisiana guy from New Orleans Jesuit High School. The one that got away because LSU, when he came out, LSU baseball was nothing. And Mississippi State had him and Palmero, and those guys really, they were the thing. All right.
Yeah, I have a Will Clark story.
Oh, let's hear it. We're going to have him on the show. He'd definitely be on the show.
Yeah, he's not going to enjoy this story. But
Poor Will.
How about he comes on before this goes live? That way, just try,
So it actually has I think a pretty sweet ending, kind of like, it starts and ends fairly similar to yours. So played ball for Catholic High. Jesuit was a big rival of ours, which is where Will went. And we were a juggernaut that year. I think it was my junior year. We're rolling, having a lot of success. We've got Skip at all. In fact, Skip was at this game. We were playing Jesuit at home. And there was just this guy in the stands. Now, we had played each other. We all knew each other very well. And it was very competitive. I mean, most of the kids on that field were all going to play D1 ball. There was this one kid, a lefty, hitting 3-hole that was just a sweet swinger. I mean, God, he looked just like Will. And he was so good. Well, one of my proudest accomplishments that year is he hadn't got a hit off of me yet, and he was one of the best hitters in the state, if not the best hitter in the state. That particular game, I faced him twice, strike him out twice. Neil Weiner comes in to relieve me and strikes him out a third time. Now, in the meantime, there's this lunatic in the stands screaming and yelling like an uncaged monkey. I'm telling you, like unhinged. Every time Scott struck out, this guy was yelling like, "This chump can't break glass," all this stuff, rag arm this, rag arm that. I'm like, who let this insane person in the ballpark? Well, when Neil strikes him out for the third time, he takes his hat and he acts like he's swatting a fly for the hat trick. This crazy lunatic in the stands goes absolutely ballistic and is like climbing up the fence, like it's getting concerning. All right, well, so Scott, last name Clark, turns out he's Will's little brother.
Yeah, little brother.
Strikes out 3 times in a massive, very important game. We go to extras. Neil's still in. Scott hits a ball that might still be going about 450 feet down the right field line, and Will, who was the lunatic in the stands, is taking his hat. "Where's your hat now, you bitches?" We're a bunch of high school kids, right? Like, this is a psychopath. Looks like he wants to fight me after the game. So that was my first exposure to Will. Like, all right.
Like you said, no passion in that.
Yeah, right.
Show up. You know?
So like 20 years later, I'm playing in a charity golf tournament, and there's this group behind us that like keeps hitting into us. I'm like, we're in a scramble. Would you guys relax? And they're hitting like way past our drive. there's just this lefty that's just bombing the ball, right? And I'm starting to get irritated, like, I'm going to say something. Well, we're playing this little dog leg left, and we're on the green, and a ball comes rolling. I'm talking, there's no way he could have seen where the ball landed because it was behind woods, but he knew we were there. I'm like, this guy's a jackass. The ball comes rolling between us. There's 5 of us standing on the green. This ball comes rolling, and I look down, and on the ball it just says, "The Thrill." I'm like, this guy
On the golf ball.
had his balls printed, "The Thrill."
The Thrill.
And so, of course, we picked the ball up and threw it in the water.
Kick it.
He
Yeah.
comes riding up, like, "Anybody see my ball?" I'm like, "Nah, man.
No, sorry, man.
Nah."
Check
It's
the
like, "Is
water."
it a Titleist?" He goes, "It says The Thrill on it." And we all just started laughing. I thought he was going to kill us. But the true ending to that story is my business partner, a guy I owned some hunting land with, their next door neighbors. Will couldn't be a sweeter guy. He's extremely passionate. He's actually been to our hunting camp. And he's just a lot of fun and a great human. But to your point, Grant, when you have these isolated experiences of another human, you could easily judge them for that.
Yeah.
And you caught him on one of his worst days. I caught him on a day where he was probably not his everyday self, right? But when you really get to know him, and oddly enough, we connect over through a wine and a bourbon with him as well. So it's just funny how all this stuff intertwines, this baseball and wine
All
stuff.
comes together. Yeah. So tell us about Reverie and A&R. What's in the bottle?
Yeah, so I'll start with A&R. So A&R, as a young winemaker, I really wanted to have something that I could call my own. And the industry as a whole in the wine business, there are opportunities for small projects under larger windows. And so A&R started off as a couple barrels as a side project, if you will, while I had my day job. And it kind of slowly grew, and then connections and reputation in the valley led to more people asking about it, and it just kept getting a little bigger and bigger. Meanwhile, I'm actually working for Reverie, the original owner, Norm Kicken, one of phenomenal mentor of mine on so many levels, and he had encouraged it. He was like, "Great, you should have this project. He offered to have me make the wine at the winery where I was working. He'd even tell clients that were visiting Reverie to buy Reverie wine about my A&R project. And when you're done here, you should really hit up Grant and go taste down in his Coombsville property." And it was great. But it eventually reached a point where A&R had gotten large enough, and I was about ready to get married. And my wife, who was a teacher, Wisconsin, Midwestern, she hitched her wagon to the wrong entrepreneur, Yahoo. And I've been dragging her through a world that she was not raised in for a long time. But she was the one that said, "Look, we either need to push this forward into something that becomes a family business, or we should probably kind of shrink it back down and go back to doing, a career-based living." And she was the one that did it first. She put in her notice as a teacher and made the commitment to quit her job to be part of a project that she had only been part of and participated and helped with, but never really was part of from the beginning. And that was when A&R was born. In late 2014, we bought the property that we now call home for A&R, and made the side project turn into actual family business. Fast forward years later, Norm reached out to me, and he had decided to retire again. Reverie was a second project for him. It was Reverie is French for the daydream, and that was his daydream when he was in New York as a CFO for a big Fortune 1000 company. But the people that he had sold the property to weren't interested in the actual wine business side of it. They just wanted the facility. So I ended up buying, with Megan's help, maybe not her full support at the time, but with her help, buying Reverie from my old boss. He had, I'll spare you the really long story, but he had wanted me to be involved so much that he was willing to be the bank. Which again, more nod to Norm's mentorship along the way. And so we took over the project, rebranded it, started it. It was just supposed to be kind of something under the A&R umbrella. And after a few years of operating it, it had done really, really well. The staff, many of them I worked with when I worked at Reverie, had still been with the company.
That's cool.
So we decided to push all in. We bought a beautiful 30-plus acre estate, the base of Howell Mountain, and made Reverie a new home as well. So
Great
now
story.
fast forward to 26, right? Yep. Yeah. 2 beautiful wineries, 2 amazing projects, both equally unique in their own right, both from a winemaking perspective as well as staff and personality. But the grassroots cornerstone is still there. You have to visit the winery to have owned a bottle.
Well, yeah, and the cottage that we stayed in was great, but you have a new project at Reverie.
Yeah, the beautiful cottage at Reverie as well for our club members to stay at. Our big thing is that Napa got its start. Napa's history will never change. I go back. I'm not going to bury you with millions of years of dirt again. But Napa's history will never change. It'll still always be the Mecca of wine. But there is a time, and I think it's infancy in the 70s and 80s, that Napa's personality was at its best. And that was when there's a bunch of humble farmers, a bunch of startup wineries, family-owned and operated projects that people came to Napa, experienced, and went home and told every person they could possibly meet. And I'm not saying that Napa has been ruined, but over time, over the last couple of decades, Napa's personality has kind of lost a little bit of that authentic nature. And I think our projects are designed to bring back that authentic nature, that aspect of being, I'm here in the South, farming is a way of life. And it's not necessarily flashy. And I think that that's where Napa's future needs to be, is getting back to that experience, hospitality. So if you could stay at the property as a club member and be able to wake up in the morning looking over the vines and go down and talk firsthand with the winemakers and the people. It's a hell of a way to know.
Sounds like
Napa.
a road trip, probably.
It does.
Yeah, I was going to say, sorry, that was not a sales pitch, I promise. But I invite you to come, please.
And look, to speak in generalities, obviously, for me, the most amazing place on earth is A&R and Reverie. That's where I want to go when I go to Napa. I think in general, though, a lot of people just aren't educated you hear about wines that you see in restaurants or the big labels that are super expensive, and you're told, if you want a good wine, pay that for that or whatever, and it's marketed really well. But the true beauty, in my experience, when you go to wine country, is to go to these boutique, organic wineries that are family-owned businesses, hear their story. You get to meet the winemaker a lot of the times. You get to meet the proprietor and hear the story, and you hear the romance behind it. You hear the heartbreak and the hard work involved. It's not commercial. It's not transactional. And to me, it is sad that, like so many things in the last few decades, we've kind of lost what they're there for. But there are these really special places, and I think A&R and Reverie are just exemplary of that, where you can go have these authentic experiences, meet the passion and the brains behind it and the hard work behind it, and hear the story. It's magical. And if you've never been to Napa, or you've only been to Napa to do big company wine tastings, I highly encourage you to find some really great small boutique wineries to go have that experience. Obviously, these are two that I would recommend starting with, but there are plenty out there. It's just a way better and way different experience that is a throwback to why Napa's really there.
Well, I feel like we're not going to be able to finish this original episode without toasting collaboration.
Oh, we still need to talk about the
that's the bell of the ball.
BamVino here.
Well, while you talk about Barbera, because you skipped that. You talked about the other one, but you didn't talk about Barbera. I'm going to pour the BamVino, and then we're gonna have a toast here at some point.
Absolutely.
What do you think?
I love it.
All right, let's do it. Robbie, go ahead.
So I've known Grant for, like we said, going back to the original A&R days, and then the last time we went to Napa a few years back, we got to go to Reverie 2, and it was in the middle of the harvest. And so we did a wine tasting without Grant, with his really great folks there, and they pulled out this Barbera. And in the middle of the tasting, I'm like, why am I at Grant's place drinking an Italian wine that I've never even heard of? Like, he's always up to something. Like, I know I'm going to like it. Why that, though? That's so random. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to like it. Well, this is one of the few wines I've ever had in my life. I can honestly tell you. I smelled it, and I'm like, all right, that's unique. And then I tasted it, and the experience I had was unlike any other I've ever had. Just such a unique blend of just flavors and reactions in my mouth. It wasn't this big, bold cab that kind of like went in strong and finished deep. It was just different. And I don't know if I could use the word lighter, but it just was all the sophistication of a cab, but without all the back end. I just can't, and I'm a big cab guy. But it was a beautiful wine. It didn't make me sweat. We were sitting out there in the sun. I'm like, this is weird. And then, of course, by the time we get to the end of the bottle, I'm like, I need to have more of this in my life. I want a case every 6 months. And then Grant came along, and he was in the middle of the harvest, so he was actually drinking beer, not wine, because
It takes a lot of beer to make good wine.
right. And so I'm just peppering him about this Barbera. I just could not have been more confused by it. And he told me the story behind it, which I'm sure he'll share, and I just fell in love with it. And so this has been my go-to. His Reverie 2 Barbera, anyway, had been my go-to. anytime we have people over, I love to wow them with that because so many people are just like, wait, you have a Barbera from Napa that Grant Long made? And it's just a cool story. And so about a year ago, I told him I'm kind of interested in kicking around, making this a real thing with a Napa winery license. The cab is my cab. Like I adore that, but I also want something that maybe is an alternative. And he's like, why don't we play with the Barbera? I'm like, no way. And he was so cool about it. I'm like, well, yes, please. And so we just made it the nod to LSU with the purple wax. And so now we have a cab and the wonderful Barbera.
Well, the origin story goes back to my comment about Norm kicking. I mean, I have to give him the nod because it would never have existed in my life if it wasn't for him. Norm came from New York where Italian, French, Spanish, Napa, French, whatever, all these influences, and he loved wine. And so when he came to Napa, he planted things that most people would never plant. Like he I don't want to say didn't give a fuck, but like he just didn't care. The money wasn't the driving force behind. This was all passion. And so he planted this Barbera on Diamond Mountain, and it was a fan favorite back then of our loyal supporters, and just as surprising to them as well. And so fast forward me taking over the project, it was really important for me to continue doing some of these grassroots passion projects that started with Norm, even if it had to financially make sense for me more so than for him. And so the Barbera, I tell people every day that, you know, the Reverie mailing list is full of cab-loving junkies. Our Barbera is the #1 selling wine we produce every year because I think it crosses those bridges you were talking about, checks those boxes of being big and rich and full-bodied, but also having this elegance and this suppleness and this mouth-watering character that is just, well, it's wonderful in general, but here in the South, it's a hell of a way to enjoy a nice red, too.
100%. Yeah, no, it's so good. It sits kind of right, like you said, right in the middle. And it just lands so well in contrast to some of the other great wines. Well, we're gonna have to toast. Yeah, well,
BamVino, let's toast.
Let's toast it and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Cheers, fellas.
Yeah, so when we started the BamVino conversation, you know, when you're replacing a baseball bat, I'm just thinking about this from a winemaking perspective. You're going to have to think about what are you going to put in that slot that's replacing a baseball bat. I was thinking Pinot isn't going to do it. I mean, my mindset was built around making you a Cabernet. I think it just kind of fit across the board. And when I sent you the samples and you tasted through, there were a couple mountain samples, or a couple valley floor samples and one mountain sample. And I honestly believed that before you even tasted it that you would have ended up at Atlas Peak. But again, going back to wine, everybody's got a style, everybody's got something. And so I think it was really kind of, again, an awesome full circle to see the Atlas Peak Vineyard Cabernet end up being what goes in your BamVino statue as the honorary first wine. And I think it also is something that as people pick up your statues and end up with a case of your wine, I think it's also going to come as a bit of a surprise. I honestly do. I think people are going to open it, kind of go, oh, this is super fun. And then they're going to put it in a glass and they're going to go, oh, this is more than fun. He actually put some thought into this.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that I think will create momentum behind the concept of BamVino as well.
Yeah, you nailed something that was in my mind from the very beginning. Was it's got to be really good wine. You know, it can't just be gimmicky. It can't be a shtick of some kind. And so we agreed on that before we even kind of rolled in conversations with him. It's like, it's got to be good. And he was like, yeah.
Well, I mean, we knew the floor was already high enough.
The floor was
making it.
Exactly.
So we knew we couldn't go wrong. But,
couldn't go wrong.
But it really,
So
I mean,
good.
it was a nice battle because everything we tasted was great. But that one just stood out from the beginning. It's just exceptional.
Well, I hopefully, and I know we all are feeling it's like the start of something big, but if all that ever happens is this show and hanging out with you guys, you know, and talking
I'm just
wine
honored
and
to be
baseball.
part of what will be 1,000 episodes, and I can say I was on
You're the first
one. I'm just saying.
Yeah, well, like I said at the very, very beginning, this probably shouldn't exist, but it does. Three good minds coming together. On our website, you know, we have a pretty cool little layout in the story. I'll just leave that for the surprise. If they go to thebamvino.com, they'll get to click on the story and they can scroll down and see. But what's pretty cool about that is I called myself the originator, and you the collaborator, and of course you the winemaker, and as the positions on the team. You know,
I love it.
And I think that's really what brought this together. So,
well, I think I got to say this because it got brought up last night, and since we are an official launch here, if I'm allowed to say about the founders opportunity,
absolutely.
I think it's really important to say that if you are a baseball lover and you're intrigued about great Cabernet, the founders opportunity as a case of Cabernet comes with one of your BamVino statues.
Absolutely.
As a founding member, and that's not going to last forever. That is literally like a
very
special
limited
scenario. I think that's something that once your website is up and running, if you love Cabernet and baseball, there's no better either gift for a friend that loves both of those things, because we all have those, but also an opportunity to add another talking point and story in your life.
Yeah. Well, we've had baseball, we've had wine, and we've had some good stories, and that's what this podcast is about.
I love it.
So cheers, fellas.
Cheers again.
Cheers.
Thank you.
And that's going to be it for the original episode of the BamVino podcast. Come back often, and we'll see you soon.
Cheers.